In this segment, we will talk about Baroque touches, beginning with the Pachelbel Toccata in E minor. We are here at Calvary United Methodist Church in Brownsburg, Indiana, featuring the 1994 Charles M. Ruggles tracker instrument. In the Toccata by Pachelbel, from the late 17th century, we are dealing with perpetual motion, we are dealing with sections, we are dealing with light actions in and out of the key, swinging from the knuckle. At the beginning of the piece, we have two touches, a light touch in the right hand in thirds, and an outlined arpeggio in the left hand that is weighted, outlining the E minor triad of the piece, establishing the opening segment of the toccata. Here, these touches are very important because you're doing two at one time, and it's a question of having the wrist be high throughout the work and knowing when you want accent as well, and when you want more weight into the key to produce that accent. So now I will begin the demonstration of the Toccata in E minor by Pachelbel. In my document, I refer to the term vibrated legato. This falls in the non-legato spectrum because we're dealing with Baroque touches and we want space in between the notes. Dr. Jeanette Fischel, chair of the organ department at Indiana University, suggests that a vibrated touch in Baroque music can be useful, especially when dealing with heavy actions. And it's a question of having the weight come from the arm in order to get the key to go down versus the finger. Here, the action is light. It doesn't take much to open up the palate, allowing the pipe to speak. So, finger action is okay. But, for instance, in the opening of the E minor toccata, I have weighted arpeggios outlining the triad. There's a sense of freedom as I fall from the top of the keyboard to the bottom of the keyboard. And that is appropriate given that the opening statement establishes the mood and the affect of the piece. That also allows freedom for the right hand to respond in minor thirds, lightly swinging from the knuckle and out of the key. I'm literally rocking back and forth between fingers 2 and 4. Together, it produces a nice effect with the heavy weighted arpeggio in the left hand and the lightning minor thirds in the right hand. Next. On the outer portions of the right hand, you have quarter notes. And I'm playing those notes with a sense of weight falling into the key. And then between the left hand and right hand, there's an inner figuration that's lighter and out of the key. My right hand, I'm using my thumb and first finger, and there's a small sense of rotation here, and my wrist is high. The thumb is passing it off to the first finger. We want to give emphasis to the top note because that's the quarter note, the longer note value, and the important line, versus the inner figurations. In this next section, we will talk about the scalar passage starting in measure 5. It's important for the finger to swing out of the key from the knuckle and to show the continuity in the rising line. my finger is coming down on top of the key, and I don't have a lot of weight in my hand. I'm just letting the natural weight rest on top of the key. Here, we're in measure 7. We have 30-second notes, and here the pulling out touch works. And here the fingers draw back into the palm, like a cat, in order to provide clarity. I think it's important to place the first note of that descending line just to get you a foundation from which you then go forward from. So I'm just gonna slightly overhold that B. Now that was a bit overemphasized just to show, but I always think it helps, but it can help to have a bit of an emphasis on the first note before you go. You're setting yourself almost like a runner or a diver before they dive, or a runner that gets into position basically. We're getting into position, the hand into position with the first note, and then falling. In the pedal, I'm giving separation just to provide clarity for the harmonic changes throughout. An example of this starts in measure 10. So there's a sense of weight and heaviness. We are going in consecutive motion, and the gaps are not too big, but there's a sense of weight and heaviness and clear separation for the purposes of clarifying the harmony. Next, in measure 14, we have a series of sequences where we're using the pulling out touch. And I'm giving a bit of weight to that bottom note because it's the start, if you will, of that figure. You have a 3-note 16th figure that comes before, and that is throughout. And again, here you want the pulling out touch where the finger draws back into the palm. Here you want to take the weight out of the hand and favor more so the weightless side of the spectrum again for the pulling out touch, allowing the wrist to be high, the fingers to dangle, so that the fingers can naturally pull back and the wrist can remain loose. Also, at the start of that 30-second note passage, again, I'm giving a bit of emphasis on the first note before I go. And that is throughout. Now, towards the end of the piece around measure 21, we get into the coda, if you will, and we have notes that are being held that are higher in register, and we still want a sense of clarity. So here, there might be a more sense of being stronger into the key, just to make certain notes louder, so that you can hear the counterpoint. Starting in measure 21. concepts that were addressed concerning the Toccata in E minor by Johann Pachelbel deal with Baroque touch, deal with swinging from the knuckle for clarity, deal with adding more weight in the hand for the heavy opening arpeggio at the beginning of the piece, then moving to the scalar passage and providing continuity and a sense of the ascending line. Next, there was the harmonic passages and breaking early in the pedal in order to provide clarity within the room, followed by the pulling out touch in the sequential passages where we have the sequences going through the various harmonic progressions, and then ending with the codetta where we do add a bit more weight that one could say is vibrated as we get to the middle and lower range of the key, because it takes more weight usually on trackers to play those notes, with the pipes being bigger and opening the palette, allowing the pipes to speak in the middle range of the keyboard and lower range of the keyboard. And so it's always a question of where the weight is coming from, the arm or the hand, how much is needed based on the action that you're playing, and a sense of detachment and how much space you want in between the notes. These are the concepts in Toccata in E minor by Johann Pachelbel.